their ability to chart their own national futures on their own terms. This, too, is our goal, as Secretary Hegseth eloquently laid out last year at the Shangri-La Forum. And our military focus, alongside the efforts of our allies and partners, is designed to uphold that ability. Third, we recognize clearly that there are other real threats around the world that imperil our allies and indeed our own interests directly. We do not neglect that. To the contrary, we see it clearly. But we also understand that we need to allocate our own resources realistically and prudently, and that we must account for our allies and partners' ability and will to meet those challenges as well. This is why the strategy so strongly emphasizes burden sharing, which is its third pillar. The logic here is to encourage, enable, and wherever necessary, to press our allies and partners in other theaters to take primary responsibility for their conventional defense. This makes sense because, as is so often pointed out, we are allies with many of the world's largest and most advanced economies. As a result, we do indeed have an alliance network that has tremendous latent military power. Unfortunately, over the last generation, partially due to our own permissiveness and perhaps even hubris on this point, many of our allies have functionally demilitarized. This is untenable and unreasonable, and the fact is that our allies know it and are moving rapidly and substantially to step up. They are no longer, because of President Trump's leadership, fighting the scenario. Rather, they have now accepted they must step up and are beginning rapidly to do so. As a result, our approach has adapted to one of let's get down to business. In Europe, we are urging our allies to move to a model of NATO 3.0, in which wealthy European allies take the lead for the conventional defense of European NATO. On the Korean Peninsula, we are urging our South Korean ally to do the same vis-a-vis North Korea. And the good news, distinguished members, is that this is working. Our allies are indeed stepping up along these lines. Now the issue is helping them do so and making this transition as rapidly and effectively as possible, which is indeed our focus. In other regions, we are also urging and seeing progress with our allies. Along the first island chain, with countries like Japan and Australia, we are urging these wealthy and capable allies to do their part for collective defense, as the NSS urges. In the Western Hemisphere, we are working with many like-minded countries in the region to address shared threats to our prosperity and well-being, as today's conference in Miami demonstrates. And in the Middle East, we are actively working with our model ally, Israel, and other regional partners to address the threat of Iran and terrorism, indeed the very purpose of Operation Epic Fury. The final pillar of the strategy, as you mentioned, Mr. Chairman, is to supercharge the defense industrial base. The NSS and NDS, and I stress this, both call for a national mobilization of our industrial capacity to arm both our own forces and those of our allies and partners. As you on this committee know so well, this is vital because we must be able to arm our own forces and those of our allies and partners with the best weaponry quickly, at scale, and at a reasonable price. We are seeing tremendous progress on this front thanks to President Trump, Secretary Hegseth, and Deputy Secretary Feinberg's efforts, as well as your support and leadership in Congress, but this will be a critical continuing area of focus in the coming years. In closing, this strategy promises, under President Trump's leadership, to put our country and our allies and partners on the path to lasting security. In just a few years, we can expect the warfighting ethos to have been restored in our armed forces and for them to be armed with the most modern, effective weaponry at scale. We can expect our wealthy allies and partners around the world to have stepped up to do their part for collective defense and their own security. We can expect our potential opponents to see the peerlessly formidable armed forces of the United States and the highly capable forces of our allies and partners together, and to conclude that peace and restraint is the better course for them. Thus, we can very much reasonably hope for a decent peace for Americans, for our allies, and for that matter, for our potential opponents. This is a very good future to which we can reasonably aspire. At the same time, however, we at the Department of War know that we cannot take this future for granted. To the contrary, we will hope for the best but prepare for the worst. We will ensure that our armed forces are as ready as they can possibly be in line with the priorities outlined. Should our potential opponents spurn this reasonable offer, members of this committee, your support in ensuring that our forces are ready will be absolutely vital. Thank you very much, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, and I'll recognize myself for questions. I have, over the last couple of years, spoken repeatedly with General Grinkowicz, the EUCOM commander, his predecessor at EUCOM, General Cavoli, and U.S. Army Europe Commander Donahue about the decision to withdraw the brigade from Romania. All of them made the assessment this would increase NATO's risk in deterring their posture against Russia, but it also sent a terrible signal about the United States' commitment to NATO. General Cavoli, in fact, last year when he testified before us in the posture hearing, left absolutely no doubt during that hearing that it was his best military advice that we keep that 5th Brigade in Europe. Then we had President Trump state 2 days before the decision was made that there would be, quote, no significant changes to U.S. force posture in Europe. And then also we had Secretary Rubio told his Romanian counterpoint 2 weeks, the very same thing. When I was in your office, I told you there was overwhelming bipartisan support in Congress for keeping our posture in Europe at 5 brigades. It's clear to me that you decided that pushing your agenda on U.S. force posture without interagency coordination and without regard to the President's opinion or Congress's was the way to go. Can you explain to me how you arrived at that position?
Thanks for the opportunity, Mr. Chairman. Let me, I categorically assert that I was straight with you in our discussions, and I commit to be. So that just kind of lay flat, as they say in the Pentagon on that point. Let me reassure you emphatically that I'm a loyal lieutenant of the President, and we don't do anything in the Department of War that is not aligned with the President. I am not in the chain of command, sir. So when you say you, I can only infer that you are referring to President Trump's Department of War. I stay very, very closely tied in with Secretary Hegseth, who is, of course, with the President essentially every day, whether directly, physically, or otherwise. So let me just stress once again, sir, that these are the policies of the Trump administration. I am a loyal lieutenant of the President, and we follow his instructions on this issue as others. On the specifics of the matter, sir, a couple things. This decision was coordinated through normal channels within the Department of War and did receive best military advice. And in fact, some of the, I will say, some of the reasons for doing it was the significant stress on the Army forces that were deployed there. So that was actually some of the, in fact, we all heard about it directly. And without getting into individuals, because it's deliberative within the executive branch, I have a different understanding of the best military advice provided by some of our commanders. So happy to go into that.
So we aren't competent to hear best military advice in this committee?
I'm sorry?
You're telling me that we aren't competent to receive best military advice?
I'm not saying that at all. You're absolutely competent.
I mean, Cavoli sat in that chair and told us that it was his best military advice.
General
He was
Cavoli
the
did?
EUCOM commander. His successor told us the very same thing.
I'm not questioning your integrity in this, sir, but I heard something different in terms of when we made that decision, so without getting into personalities. Okay. And then actually, sir, and I won't quote the individual specifically, but a very relevant senior European official actually said that this was a very beneficial signal. I heard that about several weeks ago, and has demonstrated to Europeans that they need to set. Sir, I don't think, I was asked not to, maybe in closed session we could go into it, but I can give you chapter.
We'll have a closed session right after this. I look forward
Happy to do that, sir. Mm-hmm.
All right. The decision, as I understand it, to remove that brigade was made on October 24th. Our committee was formally notified on the 27th. How can you characterize, and they're telling us 3 days later that that's consultation with Congress, which you are constitutionally required to do when it comes to force posture decisions like that?
Sir, I'd have to get back to you on the details, but we take our duty to consult with Congress very seriously. Obviously, we're focused on preserving the President's. I know you share the desire to preserve the President's decision space, and we want to make sure we do that, as well as Secretary Hegseth's. But you can rest assured, in fact, my office, just in the last 4 or 5 months, I think has done upwards of 100 touches, both with your committee and the Armed Services Committee, as well as Senate Armed Services Committee, as well as with other parts of the Congress. So I would actually go so far as to say our organization is one of the leaders in congressional engagement.
We see that completely differently. It's been like pulling
I'd be delighted, sir, to make sure that we rectify that. I know Ms. Earl.
And the SASC has had the same public statements, that it's been difficult to get information from your office.
I think, sir, if I could maybe just say on that, if you look at, for instance, some of the leading members of the SASC, they've actually said that we have been doing a much better job. And we're not perfect. I certainly don't say that, sir. So welcome feedback. And, it was very good to meet with Ranking Member Smith. I'd welcome meeting members from throughout. I know met with some of the members here, so we're available.
All right. Well, I still feel strongly that I concur with the last 2 EUCOM commanders and General Donahue that we need 5 brigades in EUCOM. Having said that, we're at 4 now, thanks to the decision that came out of your department. Now, on September 25th of 2020, September 3rd of 2025, President Trump welcomed the Polish president to the White House. During that visit, when asked by a reporter whether the United States would continue stationing troops in Poland, President Trump responded, quote, "We'll put more there if they won't. We'll stay in Poland. We're very much aligned with Poland, period," close quote. Do you agree with the president's position that the United States will, at a minimum, maintain the 2 armored brigades that are currently in Poland?
Mr. Chairman, you can rest assured that I will absolutely implement the President's guidance on that matter as on others.
Okay, so we will not be dropping below 4 brigades in EUCOM in the foreseeable future.
So I want to be careful to preserve the President's decision space, and I'd have to go back and specifically look at what the President said and what the instructions he's given us. But, you know, my point is that we will absolutely make it a point of pride and a point of focus